What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Press for Time. We are actually not too pressed for time today. We had a little bit of free time. We've got a lot going on, but it's a lot of good stuff. I am your host, Tyler, as always, joined by the elusive Braden, who pops in every now and then. But we have a very, very special guest from outside the Press for Time standard staff here. We've got the most dapper journalist you will find on the internet covering video games. We have Veerender Jubbal. What's up, brother?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you so much for having me. I cannot express my gratitude whatsoever.
This is awesome, man. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, since back when X was Twitter and Twitter was good.
Let's not go too far with it now.
No, it was good. It used to be good. But no, man, I've been a big fan of your work journalistically. I've been a big fan of your work socially. The voice that you provide to people that don't necessarily always get one is always just outstanding, man. You're a shining light on social media, on top of being a genuinely phenomenal journalist and guides writer. So this is a fantastic opportunity for us, man. Thank you so much for being here. And for the folks that don't necessarily know who you are, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll talk Monster Hunter.
So I cover a lot of guides writing and feature news sort of stuff. So like last year was my travel year, I like to say, because I went to San Diego, I went to Boston, I went to LA twice, I went to Japan, all for work, of course. Yeah. And like quite a few people, when they met me, they were like, oh, it's nice to bring a face to a name, because like millions upon millions have read or used my work. Like,
oh yeah,
the Tears of the Kingdom guide for IGN, I did all the map stuff for that to make sure everything was in its right place. Last year I did Dragon's Dogma 2 map as well, Pokemon Scarlet Violet for IGN, Arceus as well a few years ago, and then recently I did a piece on Rolling Stone for Tekken's 30th anniversary and what makes it one of the most prolific 3D fighting games. So I got to go to Japan. I got to meet Harada and
awesome. a dream, truly.
And other producers like Michael Murray and Koei Takeda Koei. And yeah, so it's always a thing where people have read or used the work, but they just haven't. Yeah, I've just been like an enigma, quote unquote. So that's how I always introduce myself when people at events or anything. I'm like, "Oh, did you use the Tears of the Kingdom map?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that was me on 9 months on there." Yeah,
I can't imagine.
It's a very helpful map, to be fair.
Yes,
play Tears of the Kingdom. That's a very nice map to have.
Yeah. So for that sort of work, it's kind of just putting it all together in the sense of like, so we had about almost 30 writers on that project. So we had some people doing side quests. So the way it went was like there's 15 regions. So there were 2 writers for each region. Mm-hmm. So like any point of interest, I make sure that it has an image, a link to, okay, let's say like one of the shrines. That's a good example. It's a shrine, so it has to have an image. It has to have the link to the written walkthrough, how to beat the shrine. And then it has to have a link to the video walkthrough to beat the shrine. So I made sure all that was correct and so it's easily findable, so people are not confused in that sense. So yeah, and then like Koroks and stuff like that, I had to make dead end pages, which is, so one page would have like all of the Koroks in Hyrule Forest or whatever. I had to take each and make its own individual page. So other people were doing the writing and work, but then, it's kind of similar to like data entry work. But yeah, so I did end up making 800 Korok pages, for example.
Oh my god, that's got to be worse than finding the Koroks.
Because I could only do like maybe 200 to 250, but like all the information is there, but it just needs to have its own page, because when you try to link the list, it links the list on a point. It doesn't link the individual thing. So you have to have its own separate pages. Yeah. So
how many are even in Tears of the Kingdom? Because it was 900. Oh god, I was like, I knew it was 900 Breath of the Wild. Jesus.
Yeah. Some of them are 2 together, but I did at least make like 700 pages. But just for that, like last year for Dragon's Dogma, like Golden Beetles, I think there was only like 50 or 60, and yeah, collectibles are very big, and those maps are going to be used for years to come.
Oh yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
I know for a fact my daughter has used the Tears of the Kingdom one on IGN.
I'm glad. Yeah.
Yep.
I used it when I was grabbing some of like the older game armor for sure.
Oh yes, yeah.
Because some of those things are just so ridiculously cryptic, and it's like it's in this one really niche cave somewhere. I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna stumble on that.
Yeah, it was kind of wild because it's like, not even from like. Just like from a perspective, like how is one person without like online gonna figure out this one Korok in this one tree out of 100 trees in that area?
Right. Yeah.
Is gonna like it's a lot.
I guess that's the benefit to having, people like yourself that are making these kinds of guides with games that are getting bigger and bigger, is it makes it a lot easier for people that are like, I don't have time to run around and find everything myself. If I can look it up, find it, I can go grab it, not have to worry about the whole involved process.
Yeah. The team did a fantastic job with that, and being able to find and do every single side quest, and because there's side quests in the game and then there's side adventures. And there's a lot. Yeah, so we had the most people on that project that I've ever seen for IGN. So
we've come a long way from the old days. I remember playing Twilight Princess and like Wind Waker on the GameCube and going to game FAQs, and it's just a notepad file. That it's just text trying to explain to you where to go. There's no pictures, there's no nothing, and that's how you had to figure it out.
Yeah.
So we've come a good long way from then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I can't say I'm super familiar with that process, but I did a little bit help with some of like when I think 4.0 for Genshin Impact came out. I was contracted. I did some freelance for him and did a little bit of stuff with that.
How was that?
I don't do a lot of exploration in that game, so that was a lot more than I usually do.
Yeah. I know for gacha games, like I've covered actually quite a few, like Marvel Snap and that stuff. So that stuff is like very SEO, or like, best polls, should you pull this character, that sort of thing. The only like
and character builds.
Yes.
Pull the ones you like.
Yeah, pretty much.
I guess that depends on the game though, because there's some pretty nasty power creep in some of these gachas.
Oh yeah,
all of them. I mean, that's how gachas work, is power creep, or else the OG players will never need to buy anything again.
Well, Star Rail just recently did a thing where it was something from, I think it was a Chinese stream or something, where they're going to start buffing old, like closer to release characters to make them more viable again, as opposed to just going, just pull something new.
Right.
That's really good. I think that's very beneficial. I think like every character should get like quality of life changes
as time goes on, 100%. Because you end up with these OP characters early that just become, vault guardians by the end of it, and it's like, man.
Some of my favorite characters
spend a lot of money to get those characters.
Some of my favorite characters in Star Rail, like the name's not going to be anything unless you play it, but my favorite character so far has been Blade, and he's just fallen off way hard just because of what content demands. So I'm curious to see how they're going to go about buffing older characters that are like maybe good in some kinds of AoE content, but not others. So I don't know. I haven't played a lot outside of Hoyo games, so as far as how other gods just handle power creep, we'll see.
Yeah.
But
so, Veerender, on top of guides work, you approach, games from a different perspective than a lot of people do, right? And sometimes
I sure hope I do.
Sometimes that goes, sometimes it's appreciated and it goes really well, and sometimes you have the people like the folks over on the old site formerly known as Twitter that do not take super kindly to the type of social journalism that you do. Can you tell us a little bit more about the lens through which you evaluate games?
So back then, I was just a kid tweeting about race stuff in games.
Yeah.
So even then, I still had many people who were journalists at the time that did instigate and add more dogpiling and harassment. I'm like, you're 40 years old, and you're picking on a teenager, basically, for saying like, oh, this game's racist, which is like, yeah, it is. Like, it's not.
It's not up for debate. Like, these are the facts of the situation, and people would get mad at the messenger, not mad at the product.
And then a thing that a lot of older folks said to me was like, I destroy like the nice person or kind person test of that, because the way I asked it, because I was like, hey, Ubisoft, you know, this is like, if I may say, and like I said it so in the most, it doesn't matter tone wise. Like,
no, never does.
People will do that. And then I had so in regards to that, originally I made Stop Gamergate 2014. So that the main reason for that was to highlight the harassment and the extreme conditions that marginalized writers and games folk were experiencing at the time that could be highlighted outside of the games industry. So then my hashtag went on from New York Times, and like you see other publications that were not games focusing on that, because like, oh, now there's like this hashtag that's trending worldwide.
Right.
So I wanted to do something, of course, and I was already being harassed, and a lot of other marginalized people were being harassed as well. You know, it's very, so I was like one of the main people, of course, because I made the hashtag, and then I got gun threats, and then had to leave Twitter, had to leave social media for 6 years, and then I kind of came back running hard, because I always feel like I have to make up the 6 years, which is not a good way to look at it.
No.
But then,
especially not with social media.
Yeah, that's a horrible platform.
No, but like even since I was a kid, I was like, if I have a platform of any kind, I want to use it to highlight the most unknown or most marginalized people, or even myself, in regards to just the work folks do, or even the representation, the games industry. A lot of people know me for focusing on like turban representation in games, or Sikh representation, or Sikhism in general. And like games have had turbans since 1985, because like Punch Out, you have Great Tiger turban. You have Mega Man 2 with Flame Man have a turban. You have Monster Hunter Wilds with a turban. Like, it's been there. So, you know, it's always surprising when character customization games, or just games in general, don't have those options, because it's more of a rarity to not have those things.
I've noticed too, with customization options for minority groups, it's often like the same like 3 options, and I see a lot of people all the time. It's like, guys, can we do a little better with this? Like, you don't need the same 3 hairstyles for every group on the planet that's not white. Like, we can do a little better.
I think like it also depends on. I always hate the argument where it's like, oh, they're Chinese developers, so but then it's like, but you're releasing the game globally, and then you're releasing it in other languages outside of its native language. So it's always like every argument, you know, horrible people bring up. It's like it can be disputed so easily, because it's like, oh, why? You know, I think Final Fantasy like 16. Final Fantasy has had turbans before. Like, it's not. Final Fantasy has had dark skinned characters for many years. Like, it's not. Yeah. It's even gacha games, and people will give a lot of. You play, Brayden. You play a lot of Hoyoverse stuff, and like
I do.
And so the argument of that is like, oh, the developers and blah blah, and it's like, no, like you're gonna dub these characters in English. You're gonna hire voice actors in North America. There's no argument whatsoever that works effectively enough.
Assuming the voice actors are, you know, under a contract where they feel safe working, as recently as I've learned through the last multiple patches of gacha games where the SAG-AFTRA AI strikes are bad.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on. Thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself for the folks that don't, you know, necessarily know who you are, but hopefully do now, and hopefully we'll start following you. We'll make sure we plug your social media and stuff like that at the end of this. But let's talk Monster Hunter, man.
Yes.
So we've got a little bit of a mixed bag as far as Monster Hunter experience goes. I am not a veteran of the series. I played World a good bit, then I played Rise, I would say kind of a lot. But that's it. That's the extent of my experience, and almost always cooperative, like with these guys, with my friends. So I have very little experience on my own. Braden is a longtime Monster Hunter player who has played.
Yes and no.
Braden
is
a child, so not a long time, but a lot of Monster Hunter games in a short time.
I'm going on 26. All right, cut me some slack. I'm closer to 30 than 20. Thank you. Yeah.
Listen to him. His voice went. He dropped his voice like a whole octave. No, I'm an adult. I promise.
Yeah, I swear. I can drink. I swear I can buy alcohol. I started with 4U in high school.
Right.
I went back and played 3U, and then I kind of was just in a really big drought until World, and then I played World for 100, 200 hours, and then Generations Ultimate for like a playthrough. I don't even know how long it was.
Sure.
And then obviously back on Rise now that's been out for a while. Well, I can't say it for a while for those of us that have had the privilege of being able to play it early and review it. But
yeah.
So I played a good batch of them, nothing older than 3. But I mean, I love the series, even if I'm not good at them.
That's why you pals onto it. So it's all
yeah,
exactly. And so what? How much Monster Hunter do you have, Veerender? How much would you say you have invested into this series?
So I've only played. So I used to always watch. So I never had a PSP growing up, but I always saw like classmates or whatever be playing Monster Hunter or that sort of thing. So there was never any time. It was never on something I owned that I could play.
Yeah.
And then Try kind of came and went because it was like I think it was like end of Wii.
Yeah, Wii game
generation.
And then I think 3 Ultimate was Wii U.
I missed that one. Yeah,
there was a Wii U one. Well, most people missed out on the Wii U. So
yes.
Mine's sitting on my table over there.
Oh my god, the grassroots over here.
Yes.
So Rise was my first proper get in because it was exclusive to Switch, and I had a Switch. Getting a Switch kind of reinvigorated my love for games after like all that shit I went through. Especially.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just spent years from that just playing like League of Legends or Dota or something, but like getting a new console, especially went from the 360 to that, it reinvigorated my love of games and the creatives and the developers. I always say like everybody loves games, like that's not special that much anymore. But my thing is always like I always love the reasons creatives and developers, even the most minute aspect, even like a small UI thing or a small like inclusion. There was a conscious or subconscious reason it's in there. Like they spent so much time putting it in there. There's always a reason. So Rise, I played the demo when it came on Switch where you had like 30 tries.
Yeah.
The online was broken and busted and it would waste your try every time. So then I was like, okay, I could just play it alone. And then I just like lived in the shrine ruins and just like figured out where like all the endemic life is and just like really went hard, and those 30 tries went to 0 very quickly. All of them were actually played were solo experiences of that. And then I was like, yeah, if I buy this game and the online isn't good, that's okay. I'll just play it alone like I have been. And I thought the demo was such a fantastic introduction because it does give you all the weapons, but it also gives you this entire map where you have 50 minutes to just do whatever. You can, there is a main objective, but there are a few other monsters here and there. And it's kind of, at the time, it was kind of revolutionary for like 2021, I would like to say. Maybe Rise was...
That feels close. Sounds right. 2021 sounds right. Yeah, 2021.
I feel like that was very revolutionary, especially because so the thing with games in Canada is like they're $100 each, pretty much. So I missed out on Animal Crossing because I had to buy a Pro Controller, is what I like to say. And that was early start of pandemic. So everybody was on Animal Crossing, and I'm like, I have to buy a Pro Controller because drifting. So then I put in like So now I'm at like 1,500 plus hours of Warframe because Warframe.
We talked about Warframe a little bit. Yeah, I am back in. I have been sucked back in.
Do you like the 1999 stuff, or have you
Yes.
played? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I liked it. It was different enough to really kind of revitalize what I was feeling for the series, because I go, it ebbs and flows for me.
Yeah.
But it was enough new stuff to get me back in. So I don't care for the social romancing aspect, the text chats and all that stuff. That does not do anything for me. But the new environments and the techno rot is just such a cool aesthetic. I was a big fan.
Yeah, Warframe never grabbed a hold of me. Final Fantasy's been the only live service game that's really gripped me.
I would say for me, it's so easy to like I don't have sunk cost fallacy issues. So I've had games where like before Monster Hunter, I played like so much Dauntless. I put like 300 hours into Dauntless, which is like a cell shaded monster hunting game, free to play one. And then they recently announced that they're shutting down. Yeah. And I stopped playing it when they did like the Reforged update, which kind of ruined the whole experience. Because
that's what I heard.
Yeah, so like
it retouched too much or something, or we did too much and not in a good way.
So the way it worked, and I tried to like calculate it because I liked using every weapon, but like maxing every weapon out was not possible with the new system. So then it's like, okay, so like, what's the point? So then, I already put like 300 hours before that, and I was, and I liked the route they went with, like, it's more of an MMO. So like when you fight a monster, you can still keep going, and it's more open. But I was like, I can't, like, if it's already barring me from doing these limitations for just weapons, from the new update, I just cut it completely. And then, Monster Hunter Rise came there, and then put in 300 hours into that game. And that's not even Sunbreak. So,
I did not touch Sunbreak yet. So I'm going to go back to.
Yeah, I have to do that as well. So that's my experience with 300 hours of Rise, being my first one.
Yeah. They're fun. I mean, they're definitely different than everything else. Yeah. But once you get into it and you start to understand the systems, it's like, all right, you start to really get sucked into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like even there were one thing I was surprised about. I don't know, Capcom does like an efficient job, but like the demo was maybe like 2 months before the release, and then release came, and then they fixed all the multiplayer issues. There were no more multiplayer issues. I was like, that's
I think
incredible.
Similar to like some people were talking about before Wild's reviews went up and everything, there was some weird stuff with things, and it was just like it was an older build or whatever, especially with like the beta test they did for Wilds that I know was like 8 months outdated or something was the theory.
Oh yeah, for the
I think it's a
recent one, right?
Yeah, I think for this last one that happened 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah,
I think that was still a really outdated version. I think that's probably what happened with the Rise thing as well.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if you both played the December beta or not.
That is the only one that I played. I held off on this most recent one, because I mean I already had it, but I did fire it up to test like performance differences to see what's different between the build and the beta and what I had, just to kind of see like, all right, well, what settings make what difference now?
There's I know there's a lot of more changes. They changed some bow stuff today. Insect Glaive is better.
Did they fix the controls? Because I've heard from at least Fighting Cowboy that Insect Glaive controls are not great.
Are they not? I know they did do like day one patch, like buffs to stuff. Like with the bow, I remember they increased damage, but they made it so the homing doesn't, like, all the homing don't pop up at the same time. They just go one at a time, which is still like net positive, I feel like, for the whole because if you just wait a bit and
it's not that big. You're a bow user, you're not taking aggro to begin with. So
Sword and Shield got like more backstep evade, and I'm like, it was already good, but
it's been great for the last 2 games. It was good in World, it was better in Rise.
How do you feel? You put in 2 weeks, right? At least 2 weeks.
I think the 11th is when I found it in my email, and I've played it basically every day since then if I've had the time. But I've loved it so far. I mean, it's by far, I think I liked World and I liked Rise a lot, but it is the most fun I've had with Monster Hunter since 4U, which was my intro to the series.
Wow.
I don't really have anything bad. I mean, there are some monsters that I'm like, okay, but otherwise,
it looks like they really increased the diversity of the monster. Designs. It's not just who I was watching. I watched a couple reviews. So like I said, I haven't gotten my hands on it yet. So I watched a couple reviews.
Right?
I read yours. I've watched a couple live ones to kind of prep. And a lot of people were saying, hey, it's not just a bunch of T-Rexes. It's not just the same basic design with a couple frills. They're actually dramatically different, as are the people and the biomes that you actually go through.
One of the first things I noticed while like just going through even like low rank story progress for the first 2 chapters or whatever was like I'm actually not just seeing like the same like 4 white people over and over. Like I'm seeing all sorts of different groups of people.
I have the funniest story that I've been telling people, but at SGF, I got to see behind closed doors with a lot of Summer Game Fest with a lot of other folks in the they had a lot of their Capcom booth was phenomenal. That's where I saw Kunitsugami for the first time and I played it. I'm like, oh my god, it's one of the best games I've ever played. And like a minute ago I didn't know it existed. I hope people do go back to that one because it's very cool to see new IP stuff like that.
I love when Capcom just comes out of nowhere and drops something you're like, I have no clue what this is, but it looks good.
Yeah, honestly, it's such a gorgeous game too. And so for the Monster Hunter Rise thing, they were like, okay, we're just gonna go fight a random monster. So it was like a 15-minute closed door thing, but they did a lot of closed doors stuff like that that we could watch, no questions or anything. At the end, I was like, oh, thank you. I said I'm very much looking forward to this because the South Asian and indigenous representation and the turbans you have. And they're like, we can't talk about that. And I'm like, you showed me a 15-minute of just that basically. And this was like way before those customization options were there. And this was just NPC stuff and voice NPC stuff with turbans. But I thought it was such a funny conversation. Well, not conversation. It was me being told we don't take questions right now.
No, we're not talking about that. We're glad you're happy, but shut up about it.
So I've been hyping up that whole thing because I'm like, this is gonna be the game of the year just because of this one thing. And then so I think it's such a phenomenal experience this time around. I know a lot of people I have a mate who's been trying to get in for like 12 entries and just cannot. Falls off every time because it's just like that. It just happens. Putting like 15 hours into World, but then it just fell off. But then this one is just like such a big game changer enough to be more streamlined.
Yeah,
the story is incredibly good. It's very compelling.
I was very hooked. I'm like, oh, but I gotta stop at like just one more quest.
Yeah. It's such a huge update on the story, the customization aspects. You have there's what I like to say is like there's this the way your hunter is also like fully voice acted this time around. Not like a blank slate. And
I appreciated the personality of the hunter a lot more compared to previous entries where you're like, you are there and they do tell you to do things.
Yeah.
But
I think it's just a much better approach this time around. And I feel like this game and world and the interactivity this is the vision they've always had since like 2004. This is the ultimate culmination of like, this is what we want the game to be. 2004, you don't have the graphical capabilities
or PSP and a PS2.
Yeah, and they finally did it. Like, there's quite a few maps. A lot of them have very distinct layers. They're very large. I think it's they did a lot of work on that, and I think it's. The focus system is great. The wound system.
Oh, yeah, by far my favorite addition for gameplay is that wound system. It just feels so good and interacts. So it's an extra layer of things to do, but it doesn't take away from any like fluidity of combat. It just kind of keeps the flow going.
it also doesn't overindulge, like getting like every time you destroy a wound you get a piece of something, but it doesn't overindulge it. Like you're still gonna go back and fight this monster.
Yeah.
Design wise or something. The monster I've been fighting has been me trying to max out to get the turban option for that one monster. But outside of that, what weapons do you both main?
So you'll have to correct me because I haven't played Rise in a long time. But whatever the big greatsword class,
greatsword.
Greatsword. Greatsword is almost always what I did because I just like hitting things really hard.
Yeah, you're gonna like doing that for this one too.
So it got like even better. The focus that you guys brought up, the focus system, it seems like it really helps. Because that was always my least favorite part is, you would charge up or you would set up a combo and it's like, okay, I am going to absolutely lay this dude out. And you would go to swing and just whiff.
Yeah.
Whiff. It's like, oh my God.
When they showed off, I think it was in one of the first gameplay trailers where the dude with the greatsword is in the middle of True Charge Slash or TCS, whatever you call it, enters focus mode and just turns 90 degrees. I'm like, dude, that is my biggest hurdle for greatsword.
Right. So it looks like it's going to make it, more pleasant to play. But you guys can, again, correct me if I'm wrong. It's not super hand-holdy, though. Like, you still have to engage with it. You can't just turn your brain off and say, okay, I'm locked on and I won't ever miss. Like, you're still going to miss.
Yeah.
But it's not nearly as often, and it doesn't feel so bad when you do because you'll get them on the next one.
Yeah, I'm locking on a bit more, but locking on and off. I always feel one thing I didn't do in Rise that much was like, I did use Endemic Life, but like the rock bursts and the spark flints, like I'm grabbing it's so great to be able to just like use what's in your most immediate vicinity and being able to grab stuff and like pelt at a monster, and it brings a type of interactivity and like on a very flow way that I've never seen before, especially with a game like that with so many things you can interact with in the environment, and just being able to use like whatever is in the environment next to you, use the hook shot to grab it over and throw it is great. And the greatsword wound system is so satisfying because it can take off like 3 or 4 wounds at the same time, and it's just it's never not satisfying to destroy the wounds.
I've used a couple. I haven't used a lot of weapons so far in Worlds or Wilds because I've just been sticking with the ones that I like that I've used just in general. But like with the greatsword, just like pulling your greatsword and just sprinting through the monster, just whipping through them like a butter knife to break up their wounds is just so good. It's so satisfying.
You guys have me excited. All right. So I wasn't sold on Wilds. I didn't play the demos or the betas, and I was like, I'm probably not gonna have time. Like, I've got too much on my plate right now.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get to it. But the more I've seen and the more I've talked to people and you guys, I'm like, okay, I probably need to pick this up tomorrow. I need to give this a go.
In regards to the interactivity, I am curious, how much World did you play through Iceborne with World for that expansion with the clutch claw and everything?
I did not know.
Did you either, or was it, I don't know who all? Okay. There was this thing in World that people hated that was sort of like the slinger, but it was like kind of a grappling hook for the monsters that I think in Wilds kind of got repurposed, and I like the way that it interacts a lot more, where now you're using it to grab stuff from range.
Yeah.
So like if you're running by on the Sekra, you can still like, oh, there's like a spark flint next to me. Let me just grab that on my way through, and that's such a better use of that just compared to how it was. And I think that old wound system got repurposed into what we have now with the new wound and like focus system. And it plays so much better.
Oh yeah. I think like they did a lot of accessibility. It has a lot more accessibility options. Just like, even just like the thing is like the wound and focus system improves every single weapon. It makes everything just better just by just existing. And I think that's absolutely fantastic because even stuff like just it existing, it improves the greatsword, it improves the longsword, it improves the bow or this sword and shield. It just improves everything in ways that it just couldn't without that system. But also making it more accessible. It's very much easier to spot. It's very like it helps you pinpoint for new players or even older players if you're on the right track of what you're doing.
No, that makes such a huge difference. But it doesn't seem like it feels too hand-holdy either, though, right? Like the game simplified the mechanics, but the overall goal, the overall focus is still you're going out, you're hunting, you're trying to cut off pieces, you're trying to craft armor. Like it is still just as deep as it's always been, but it seems like they really made it.
It's refined. I would say it's a lot more refined and just a lot sharper. And like Monster Hunter, I wouldn't say it's ever really been handholdy. I don't know how people feel about Rise and Worlds, like introductory stuff and tutorials and whatnot. But Wilds feels like it knows that some you might be new, but you also like you probably still know enough that you're like, I don't need to be overflown with information. I just tell me what to do, what buttons do what, and when you unlock something new, it'll give you a pop-up for it. But it's not, you're not going to sit there for 5-10 minutes sitting through a whole tutorial sequence. So it respects your time and it wants you to just go out and just play the game.
Yeah, 100%. I think I know some people had issues with it, like, you don't have time to like much time to prepare for a monster, but it's very like go with the flow. I like that you can just start a quest anytime you just hit a monster enough times. People like just like I think one of the ways I like the story, the way it does is like sometimes you just have the characters together with the Sekiret and they're just walking, and then you can like grab materials while the dialogue's happening. And I think that's really cool. And some of the the cinematics that are like heavily CGI look
the pre-rendered ones are insane.
Oh yeah,
holy just gorgeous. And then when you're about to fight a monster, in that sense, it like 1-to-1s it. And the translation is just like the transition from like a cutscene to just like getting ready to fight is just like it's perfect. Like it's very good.
I don't know if that's like Capcom themselves or just like how incredible the RE engine is, but it is genuinely insane what they've been able to do with that thing.
Yeah.
Y'all killing me.
I forgot about
Tyler's like, I gotta
oh yeah, I have to. There's no question.
One of the other interactability things that I just remembered is when you get to one of the areas and there starts being like those crystals that start forming when monsters are attacking you. And you can shoot those with an element from the slinger. And it's like, I'm going to detonate this for like 100, 200 damage or whatever element that is. And it's like, I don't have time to run up and do it because he's mid-combo. But if I blow up this crystal, he's going to take 200 damage and get knocked down. And now it's my turn.
Yeah.
There's just so many ways that it presents to you to be like, even if you are forced to be on the defensive, even with like the new greatsword, like power clashes or whatever, like the power guards and stuff.
Yeah.
Where if you perfect guard with the greatsword, it's cool. I've now caught the monster by its jaw with my weapon, and I'm now going to have a muscle wrestling match with this thing. I see Tyler getting a little excited about that one.
I know, yeah, cool, great, let's go.
One of the biggest issues I had before I played the game, and even leading up to it, was like, I'm like, I can't go back to a Monster Hunter game without wire bugs. Wire bugs are just...
That was going to be my question, because there are none in this, right?
Yeah, and there's ones in the locale that like you can swing, but that's it. So there's no innate wire bug to make it more mobile. And that was like my biggest issue, because people talk about like World so much, and I'm like, I can't go back to a Monster Hunter game before Rise, because like the wire bug is just so good. It allows you to make new combos. One of my favorite things in Rise was doing the Metsu Shorigeki. So basically the Shoryuken uppercut to the face, and like that's only done through the wire bugs, or even like getting on a monster and riding it to specific areas in the map, like that's only done through wire bugs. So I was always having like a lead up to it, like, will this be okay for me? Because I'm like, so I think the wire bug stuff is like really good, but the sling pouch sort of thing, the Sekiret, and just everything in the environment really steps up to be able to replace, but also recoup the wire bug loss in different and interesting ways.
Okay.
For
So
me,
it doesn't feel like a huge loss then. It's not a super noticeable omission. You feel it's okay without it.
Yeah, I think it's okay without it. I still feel like they should bring the system back later on
Yeah.
into maybe another side game or something. Because I think you make that whole system, you don't want to completely abandon it.
Yeah. The Wirebug
well-
system is actually an expansion on a system from Generations. All the
Oh,
Wirebug
okay.
skills were skills. They were like styles that you equipped, and it would modify your
Mm.
moveset, and it would give you those kinds of special moves that then got delegated to Wirebug moves.
Okay.
I know there were two sides of it when Rise came out. There were, half the people were complaining that it made everything too easy. They're like, oh, it's like a cheat code. You don't need that. Do it the old fashioned way. And then the other half of the people were like, this is already a mechanically dense game. Now you're adding another thing I have to try to throw into combo building. This is ridiculous.
It speeds up the flow, I think, too. I think Rise was definitely a faster game compared to World just because of the Wirebugs and how much more mobility options you had, whether it's dodging or if you get knocked down, it's, well, I got knocked down, but I'm just going to Wirebug back away from it and you're not going to hit me again.
And I think tower defense mode,
yes,
you almost couldn't do that without Wirebugs.
Yeah.
Right? That was Rise.
Yeah,
it's
not where everybody you would all set up and all the monsters would come through in waves and you would have the big like Gatling guns and stuff and you would go down. You'd have people fighting, people setting traps. There was really no way to run that mechanically. I don't feel like without having a Wirebug as well. So
yeah, I think Wilds is fast enough that I don't think the Wirebugs are necessary, but I do think bringing it back to some extent. I would like it, and I still prefer I think World over Rise, but I do like the options that the Wirebugs gave you, even just defensively. Like even if you gutted the offensive part of it, just having the option to zip around somewhere, or if I get knocked down, I'm like, all right, I'm back in the fight immediately because I have a Wirebug that I can spend to just grapple back in.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or you focus on hitting in the aerial to be able to mount the monster.
Yeah.
Ways. I like the way they did the endemic life this time, because the endemic life is so you can't put it in your pouch or anything and then lay it. So like the Nitro Frog or the Nitro Toad or the Sleep Toad, it feels interesting in a way that you're kind of you're not taking it captured. I mean, you can capture it for guild points, but you're not taking it and placing it. You're using the environment to set it off, trying to lure a monster. There's a lot more debris and other stuff you can also pull in. I feel like the monsters are also just stronger and sturdier than ever before in comparison to Rise. Even the low rank stuff, I feel like they take quite a bit to defeat. Yeah.
Do they feel more? I don't know what the right way to word it is. So World, the monsters felt pretty grounded, pretty solid as far as hitboxes and stuff went, and the way they moved. Rise, they felt kind of floaty. I don't know if that really makes sense, but they didn't necessarily feel like they were really part of the environment you were in. When you would engage with them, it kind of felt like you were going through them a lot. Do they feel a little more solid in this? If that question makes any sense,
a bit more part of the environment and
when you're hitting, you're actually hitting the monster, not just swinging through the air and the game is deciding that you've struck it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say that overall the game definitely feels more accurate and responsive compared to how some of the Rise stuff was, and I think some of that too is monster specific. Because Capcom does like to reuse old skeletons. Some of the skeletons haven't been touched since 2004.
Exactly. That's a big piece that I felt like with Rise. It was like, man, I'm seeing a big piece of monster here, but I'm swinging right through like there's nothing. But it's giving me damage. So it's like, okay, maybe this works, maybe this doesn't.
I would say I don't want to say too much about returning stuff. Obviously the game's not out as of right now. When this goes live, it will have come out, but people will not have had time to get to that point. But the returning monsters do feel good. And most of the game, I would say, is a lot of new stuff that all is just as fine-tuned as it's ever been.
Great.
There's a couple that I'm like, I'm not going to name them, but I think at least one of them was in one of this most recent beta.
Gipperos.
No, I was gonna say Arkfeld because I know that he's a big poster boy. There are some hitboxes on Arkfeld that I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that, but it is a lot bigger than me. So
yeah, I think there's a lot more diversity. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's a lot more just the way monsters are designed this time around and the way their skeletons are, as Braden was saying, it's a lot more diverse in just what you can hit on it and what you can't hit on it. For like the mounting system, you can do wounds and stab in the back, but some monsters you can only do 2 areas when you're mounting them and stabbing them. Some 3 because they're longer. The spiders, you can only do it on the back and on the head. Balahara, you can do it, on its lowermost portion of its tail, in the middle, and on its head. So it feels like there definitely is a lot more diversity in terms of monster shape, environment, how they interact with the environment as well, and like where they like to stay.
I think for a new set of monsters too, I feel like the cast is very diverse, just like what kind of species they're based on.
Yeah,
because I know Rise had our World had a lot of just like, it's a dinosaur, like that's a T-Rex, or a lizard, like that's a lizard, that's a T-Rex, and there's like 8 or 9 of them.
Yeah,
Wilds definitely feels like there's some monsters and trailers that I know people have seen that I'm still just gonna err on the side of caution about. There's like, you have like your dragons, your lizards, your wyverns, but you have some more like fish-based ones, and Mizutsune's coming back, who's very like,
yes,
I don't want to say noodly.
Yeah, right.
It's very agile.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of just like big hulking masses, a lot of like skinnier, faster ones that are like, I don't know. I think it's like a low rank like 3, but it has like pincers that are kind of like saw blades for like an entire like 2/3 of its body. That I'm like, that's not something I've seen before.
It's not one of the spiders, is it?
No, it's Hirobami, I think.
Oh, Hirobami, yeah. I think that one's very.
That seems incredibly unique. It's almost like ribbon-like, but it has blades on it, which I was like, that's not like anything else that I've seen.
Yeah, like a flying manta ray sort of thing. The Uthduna as well, because it has like, it has fins that when you hit the fins, the damage numbers are in blue as well, so you have to like try to destroy the fins so it's off that mode. But stuff like that, they use their environments really well. The Uthduna is able to like make like surging waves that hit you, and you have to use if you can try to use the bugs above you to like swing a bit. Yeah. It's very diverse for all the new monsters they're bringing. It's very diverse, and then the old ones get upgraded in interesting and new ways.
I think in some cases, I'm not 100% sure on this because I'm not memorizing monster move lists. It's not a fighting game, but I think in some cases monsters do have new moves that they did not have before.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So companions. Last piece for Monster Hunter that we'll touch on. How do you guys like the companions in this one? I've heard, so I've heard a couple complaints that maybe they are far too easy, make things like way too easy, and then some folks that are like, they've always been here. You guys don't know what you're talking about.
My take on that is, I don't know if it was Rise or World. I'm like more confident on Rise, where when you had a Palico, it did a specific job.
Yes.
So you could have a Palico that would heal you, and one that would go for severing to try to get you try to help you break parts, or blunt damage to help knock things out faster. Whereas in Wilds, your Palico does everything, and it's not infrequent. Like there are times where I'll fight a monster that can poison me, and it's like I'll get poisoned, he'll heal me. I'll get poisoned again because I'm not paying attention or whatever. And then he'll do it again. I'm like, dude, I haven't had to burn an item because he's just so on top of it.
Yeah.
I think it's a little egregious at times. And I have some complaints with how it draws aggro. Because there's a couple times, there's an optional part of a quest where it's like, hey, bring the monster to this person so they can help out. but I could not physically get the monster to stay on me long enough to get it to that NPC because the cat was drawing so much aggro.
Got it.
But I think they're strong, but I don't know if I would say broken, because you still get hit hard. Like you're still, you still have to try. Your Palico is not gonna make or break the fight for you.
Yeah. How do you feel about it overall, Veerender?
I think with like Rise, since you had 2 companions, it was even then like there were lots of like rank 7, 8 fights in Rise that were just like you'd have to die at least like once or twice before you beat some of these.
Yeah.
I like the Palico. I don't even know if it's a spoiler on the side quest or not. But
is it like the upgrade quest where he makes you go do stuff?
Any of them. So you do level up the Palico throughout, but it's also nice to have a companion like that to bring levity to the scene or to bring up questions that weren't addressed by the group as well. And you do unlock you level up every fight, even if it's tiny, it does level up, and you level up more you level up the Pelican more, and it earns new skills or things get better, or it
it'll unlock a side quest like you were saying. He'll be like, hey, go capture this and I can do something new, or I can do it better. Like there's something with like he can heal you by default. But I think one of the first side quests is, hey, could you go capture me a Vigor Wasp? And his healing gets better.
Yes, or being able to make the flash flies better, or being able to create like a flash fly sort of nest.
Yeah, traps and stuff. As you start to level him up, he'll have side quests like, hey, can you go grab me this or that? And it'll just kind of make what he already does. He'll do it better or maybe more frequently.
Yeah, I think that's like a really great way to go about that, because it makes it feel more of a character that is always there with you, that you are interacting with them outside of just fighting. Like they're side quests, there's dialogue options, there's lots of banter here and there as well. One of the monsters in the post game, there's like a cutscene that kind of made me laugh because it's in the scene with Alma and the way the banter is going.
Yeah.
I just think like anytime there's like a narrative where you have a sole protagonist like that and you have anything to bounce off of, like in Kino's journey, you have like Kino has a talking motorcycle, but it works so well because you need something to bounce and banter.
Yeah.
And like I think it's just very good this time around with that. There's no Palamute, and the Sekiret doesn't help combat wise.
Okay.
The Sekiret does allow you to bring 2 weapons this time around.
Yeah.
Or that's a big change.
Kind of functions like a mobile item box too, because instead of before when you're doing multiplayer hunts or even on your own, when you start, it starts you at a base camp and it's hey, here's your box, all the stuff we're going to give you for the mission.
Right.
Whereas with the Secret, it's now you start the mission, hey, supplies are in your check your pouch, and then periodically, I don't think it refills in multiplayer, but I know in solo hunts they will like periodically refresh your inventory.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Hey, did you burn that stuff? Here's more. Just open up the pouch. Or if you're carrying too much, just dump some stuff off on the pouch or whatever.
Yeah,
that's
I think
nice.
It's a lot more because it works great with the world itself, because there are a lot of times where you don't feel like fast traveling and you just want to like take in the sights while I like the auto run like mechanic. You just set a place.
I do when I do it intentionally. If I do it by accident, I'm trying to navigate a menu. I'm like, stop moving. No, I go back and stop moving.
Yeah.
Granted, that's my fault. So
I know some people have had like a few issues here and there with the Sekiret. Just the way it being called or anything. I didn't have anything like game breaking or something that was like, oh, this is frustrating or anything. I'm more like, oh, it's acting like a real animal would in that type of environment.
I noticed especially too that like if a monster goes to do like a big blast attack or whatever, it'll run away because it's like I'm not standing near that. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Yeah.
I had a couple issues. I don't know if you ran into it, but did you ever have any like collision issues with like trying to jump off of things that you know you can, but it's like just not? I don't know if it's like just missing like the collision point where it considers you to jump off.
Yeah, sometimes there's pathways that only the Sekiret can go on.
Yeah.
Last night there was like in one of the places it can just go down and jump on its own, but then when I went to it, I had to press circle to jump down. I think that was maybe the only time that happened, or maybe, but it's like less than 5 times out of 30 plus hours. And
it's not a common thing, but there were a couple times I noticed it. I'm like, this is like, am I missing something? And I think it's just the actual interaction point is like really small.
Yes.
And I've had that with trying to talk to NPCs. I'm like, how do I talk to you? Like,
where is your button? Yeah. That's a very, because I know like when you're riding, sometimes the interaction point has to just be a bit earlier than where you are, and you're at the end of it. And it's but it's nothing. It's negligible. I feel.
It's not a big thing. It's just like a small little thing, like a hiccup that I noticed, and I was like, all right, whatever. And then by the time 30 seconds later, I've already forgotten that it even happened. But in the moment, I'm like, how do I do? Like, what's going on here?
Those scenes are also like very cinematic. Even at the start of the game, even in the demo, when you're like on it and you're chasing the kids to rescue them with the Balahara, it's just so cinematic. But in the gameplay perspective, still like being able to do that, or like bouncing from like different
rock to rock.
It's really nice. Like it's just great.
Even just in combat, I think that it's like the cinematography and stuff is just like ridiculous. And some of like the monsters that have like weather effects when you fight them, it's like okay, this feels really cool.
Yeah. I think it's like a fantastic game, and I feel like this was the vision from like 2004, most likely. Like, have a properly open world game. There's very few times you would do load. There's very few times there's loading, and when there is, it's just like a couple of seconds. It doesn't like harm any of the world. But I also like that every map in different place is actually connected. So you do ride through everything in the story, and it's done incredibly well. So you're not just like going to one map and then you're stuck there, but like one map goes into another location and environment, into another zone. And it all connects correctly and properly, and I think that's such a grand thing to do. But
even zone transitions are like there's no loading. You just walk through. There's the loading hallway, but you walk through it and it's like, now I'm in the desert. And something else that you said it earlier, and I wanted to touch on it ever so briefly when you mentioned like that more MMO-y aspect of Dauntless, where it's kind of like you kill something and move on. Wilds does that now, and it's so nice not having to go sit through a loading screen every time you finish hunting something.
Oh, that's excellent.
You just you get the rewards right then, and then you can just head back to any of the mobile camps, or you could just fight the next monster that's in your vicinity. So it's just like,
the only caveat to that is some story missions, once you complete it, will automatically take you to where you need to be. But otherwise, super like, go hunt something. Oh, there's another monster you want to hunt further away. Skip the end like rank thing or whatever, and just go continue there.
Yeah, so I think in regards to the Palico thing, I think it's very fantastic this time around. I don't know the max level for it or anything, but it's still the bars are still going up for it, and it does get stronger in a way to just help you tackle your task better, not so much in an overpowering way. But I think I have quite a few side quests on it left. So wherever I got one of them, it's probably a spoiler, but it kind of gets wild on some of the upgrades.
I think with all the changes that they've made, that I think Wilds, I think For You is still probably my favorite, just because it's definitely nostalgia there. But I think Wilds overall, just as a complete package, is like the best Monster Hunter that I think I have played since For You. It is just feature complete. The quality of life changes, the changes to how the environment works, the new monsters. even some of the returning ones, everything just wraps up extremely well.
And you want to push forward on the story. The story is like incredibly compelling.
It actually drives you this time as opposed to just being a vehicle that you need to get through to get the stuff you want to do.
Unless you're playing 4. Just saying. Best story since 4.
Love it. I'm going to have to go back and watch a video of someone playing through 4.
It's a 3DS game.
Go back and play it.
It's a 3DS game.
Yep. Dude, well, thank you, Veerender, so much for coming on today, man. Braden, thank you for joining and helping us out. I am so excited to play this now. I am going to have to make it a point to carve out some time this weekend to see what's up. Veerender, where can people find you, man? I mean, we've got you on Blue Sky. I'll have a link there, obviously, in the show. But where else? Where else can people look for you? You're published freaking everywhere.
You can find me. So I still use Twitter in it sometimes, but Blue Sky is where I mostly. So Veerender Jubbal bluesky.social is my main thing. Outside of that, I'm doing I did a lot of guide stuff for the game for Game 8. I did so I just did a post about that, and so if you want encyclopedic stuff about the game or anything, it was like 200 plus GB of videos. So
Jesus.
So if there's anything on that on their wiki that's used, a lot of it is mine until like later on where they figure out like best weapon stuff or whatever. But a lot of the monster stuff, a lot of the endemic stuff I helped and coordinate with. That's pretty much it. Outside of that, like the main websites, we'll see this year. I'm more open to like doing more guest stuff this year. So wherever that is, I'll be at PAX East and West this year and any other events. So if folks want to, if you both are going there, that'd be cool.
I'm going to try to hit East this year. Yeah, I have actually not made it to a PAX. So I live down in New Orleans. So they're really not super close to me ever.
Yeah.
So I'm near Chicago, so nothing's close.
Yeah, that's true.
California or New York, pick one. I'm like,
I'm coming from Canada, so
so nothing's close.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try really hard to make it to East this year.
Yeah. So folks can find me on Blue Sky. I genuinely engage with everything people post at me. I don't want to say tweet because I'm trying to say tweet.
What do they call them? Are they skeets?
Skeets.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna talk about people skeeting.
But how do you skeet it?
I'm not gonna tell the audience to skeet at Veerender today.
Maybe for the OnlyFans.
Right. I saw that. Yeah, it's on your profile. Is that coming down the line? How close are we to that?
God, I made a poll on Twitter maybe like last year or the year before. It got way too many yeses.
Oh my God, I love it.
It got way too many. Yeah.
They're thirsty for you, bro.
Yeah. I mean,
the masses need it.
Honestly. But yeah, Blue Sky, I generally tweet about as, just like whatever I can post about whatever I can. And I'll probably be talking about this game a lot. I'm trying to like not say which monster like does the drops for turbans on Blue Sky. So I've just been like trying to like vague that out because I guess it would be a spoiler for which month. But like I'm there. I genuinely engage with everybody that posts at me and replies to me, and I do read everything. And it's I genuinely appreciate every time I get a compliment on any of the work I do or in regards to that. So I'm always there to be engaged with folks.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, we'll have that linked in the show description here. And thank you again, seriously, for coming on and talking this with us. And
thank you very much. I cannot express the gratitude whatsoever.
No, it's been really great, man. And everybody else, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and have fun for Benny. And we'll see you next week.